One of the most confusing moments for almost every dog owner happens when a dog that normally listens perfectly suddenly acts like it has never heard a command before in its life. You call the dog's name, and there is hesitation where there used to be immediate response. You give a command the dog has followed successfully hundreds of times before, and suddenly the dog stares off into the distance like something else completely captured its attention instead. Sometimes the change happens gradually. Sometimes it feels almost instant. And what makes the situation even more frustrating is that many owners immediately assume the dog is becoming stubborn, disrespectful, dominant, or intentionally difficult on purpose. But in reality, dogs rarely stop responding for no reason at all. Most sudden listening problems begin because something changed emotionally, mentally, environmentally, physically, or behaviorally inside the dog's world before the owner fully noticed it themselves. Because despite how intelligent dogs can become through training, dogs still experience the world primarily through emotion, instinct, environmental awareness, repetition, association, and immediate sensory information rather than human-style reasoning. That difference matters far more than many people realize. A dog's ability to listen is not simply obedience alone. It is usually the result of emotional state, environmental focus, mental clarity, confidence, habit strength, reinforcement history, stress level, physical comfort, and relationship consistency all functioning together at the same time. Once one of those areas becomes disrupted, owners often begin noticing sudden command problems surprisingly quickly. One of the most common causes is environmental distraction overwhelming the dog's focus system completely. Dogs naturally process movement, scent, sound, environmental shifts, animals, people, and unfamiliar activity far more intensely than humans do during daily life. A dog that responds perfectly inside the house may suddenly struggle outside because the environment itself becomes neurologically more important than the owner's voice temporarily. This is especially common in younger dogs, highly alert breeds, working breeds, scent-driven dogs, and adolescent dogs whose brains are still developing emotional control. Around this point, many owners accidentally make the problem worse by increasing frustration emotionally. Repeating commands louder, becoming visibly irritated, yanking the leash suddenly, or emotionally escalating pressure often teaches the dog that confusion and stress now accompany the command itself. The dog may begin associating commands with emotional tension rather than clarity. And once emotional pressure increases, focus often decreases even further. Stress plays a much larger role in dog behavior than many people initially understand. Dogs experiencing anxiety, environmental uncertainty, routine disruption, tension inside the household, overstimulation, fear, lack of sleep, or emotional instability often struggle to process commands consistently even if they fully understand the training already. A stressed dog frequently appears distracted long before obvious behavioral problems become visible externally. Changes inside the household can also affect responsiveness dramatically. Moving homes, changing schedules, new pets, visitors, loud environments, construction sounds, travel, emotional tension between family members, or even subtle routine disruptions can shift a dog's emotional focus significantly. Dogs often notice environmental instability faster than humans expect. And because many dogs rely heavily on predictable routines for emotional security, sudden environmental shifts can temporarily weaken responsiveness until the dog feels emotionally settled again. Another major cause involves inconsistent reinforcement patterns over time. Dogs learn through repetition and consequence far more than verbal explanation alone. When commands stop producing consistent outcomes, many dogs gradually become less reliable simply because the behavior itself no longer feels emotionally meaningful or predictable. Owners often unknowingly weaken commands by repeating them excessively without follow-through. A command repeated 5 times before compliance eventually teaches the dog that immediate response is optional rather than expected. This happens slowly enough that many owners do not notice the training erosion developing until reliability suddenly feels dramatically worse. Adolescence creates another stage where many dogs appear to stop listening almost overnight. During adolescent development, dogs often experience major emotional, hormonal, neurological, and behavioral shifts while their brains continue maturing. A dog that previously felt calm and focused may suddenly become impulsive, distracted, emotionally reactive, or highly environmentally aware during this period. This phase frustrates many owners because it feels like previously successful training suddenly disappeared completely. But in many cases, the dog still understands the commands perfectly well. The issue is often emotional regulation rather than memory loss. Medical discomfort can also quietly affect responsiveness. Dogs experiencing pain, digestive discomfort, hearing changes, fatigue, joint issues, skin irritation, illness, or neurological discomfort sometimes stop responding consistently simply because physical discomfort changes their ability to focus emotionally. Owners occasionally interpret this as behavioral stubbornness when the dog is actually struggling physically underneath the surface. This is especially important when behavioral changes appear suddenly without obvious explanation. Many experienced trainers recommend considering physical causes anytime a major behavioral shift appears unexpectedly. Confidence also affects listening behavior far more than many people realize. Dogs lacking confidence often struggle to focus consistently in unfamiliar or overstimulating situations because their brain prioritizes environmental scanning and self-protection over command processing. A nervous dog may appear stubborn externally while internally feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, or emotionally overstimulated. This is one reason calm exposure, confidence building, and emotional stability matter heavily during long-term training development. Training is not only about teaching commands. It is also about teaching emotional regulation inside changing environments. Many owners accidentally train behaviors only inside predictable low distraction environments. Then once distractions increase, the dog suddenly appears unreliable because the behavior was never generalized properly across different emotional and environmental situations. Dogs do not automatically apply training universally the way humans often expect. A command understood perfectly inside the living room may still require gradual reinforcement inside parks, crowded streets, public areas, or emotionally stimulating environments. Relationship consistency matters too. Dogs constantly observe emotional patterns from their owners during daily life. Unpredictable handling, emotional inconsistency, sudden frustration, unclear communication, or changing expectations often create confusion inside highly observant dogs. Stable communication creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. And confident dogs generally respond far more reliably than emotionally uncertain dogs. Interestingly, many dogs that appear disobedient are actually becoming mentally disconnected rather than intentionally defiant. Some dogs become understimulated mentally and disengage emotionally from repetitive training routines that no longer feel rewarding or engaging enough. Others become overstimulated constantly and struggle to filter environmental information properly. Both situations can produce similar listening problems even though the underlying causes differ completely. This is why understanding the emotional context behind behavior matters far more than simply labeling a dog stubborn automatically. Because most dogs are not actively trying to challenge their owners emotionally. They are usually responding to the environment, emotional state, reinforcement history, physical condition, developmental stage, or mental stimulation level operating inside that exact moment. And once owners begin looking at listening problems through that wider perspective, the behavior often becomes much easier to understand calmly without turning every training setback into frustration or conflict. Because in many cases, dogs do not suddenly stop listening because they stopped caring about their owner. They stop listening because something else inside their world became louder than the command itself.